On the north side of my land, the woods grow wild, dark, steep, and lovely. It's where the animals go to disappear. It feels like a threshold, a place where the veil is thin, where the forest keeps her secrets soft and sacred. And this is where I found the inspiration for my most recent piece. So I begin with a detailed sketch using Arch's watercolor paper, 100% cotton. I like to have my sketch with crisp lines and just as detailed as possible before I begin, so the composition comes out smoothly. And with this piece, I don't know, I just felt this mystical, magical energy, especially channeling the energy from the land. And I just wanted to create this warrior woman just posed in the middle of a deep, dark wood, and she's accompanied by two companions, and those are her small dragon friends. And not only are they helping to light her path, which is why I decided to name this piece Dragon Light, but they are also the reminder of the light she carries within herself. And so with watercolor, we always start by building our layers very, very softly. And usually it takes me about 10 to 15 layers to develop the deeper, darker tones of the skin that are more prevalent in my work. And yeah, so as you can see, this is kind of how I layer. I start with my outer edges, and then I kind of glaze over everything with lighter tones, like warmer tones, to just really bring the skin to life. And I repeat this process using light washes, just layering and layering until I achieve the skin tone that I want. And this definitely takes a lot of practice and a lot of patience. But for me, it is very important to represent people of color in my work, especially growing up as a child, loving fantasy and fairy tales, and just not seeing any characters that looked like me in my favorite stories. So I love to challenge myself, and people of color, particularly women of color, are very represented in my work. For this piece, I really wanted to replicate just that dark forest energy, having a lot of moss, a lot of twisting roots and twisted trees, and just really create this magical sense of, an enchanted forest. So I'm going in here and just layering my layers of moss, which again is a typical watercolor technique, using wet on wet and just layering upon layering upon layering. Usually after using a wet on wet technique, and once everything is fully dry, I go back in using dry paint, like a dry brush technique, and just really adding all of the little details. One of the things I love most about watercolor is how much devotion it takes to create a piece from start to finish. It truly is one of those mediums that requires so much patience, and I meet a lot of people who don't really love watercolor. And I feel like several years ago I used to be the same way. I've been working with watercolor now for over a decade. But in the past, I did not have the patience for it, and therefore I used to despise it. But as I grew older, something just really started to draw me to it. It's just the softness, the fluidity, and now I enjoy the process so much. I love to take my time and just really be present with the experience of creating a watercolor piece. So after going in and doing all of my little details in the background, I did use a light wash of Payne's Gray and some indigo hues just to create this softer, more mystical effect on the forest and the trees. I really wanted to create that sense of there being like a veil, this shift as you enter the forest, and so I decided to go with this almost like vignette effect and have a starry night sky that kind of just faded into this soft mist, and using that glazing really helped to soften up all of those harsh lines that I had initially went in with, and then later decided I didn't really want all of that sharp detail anymore. So to bring more focus to my main character in the foreground, it's definitely nice to use a wet on wet technique in the background for softer effects and subtle effects, and then with your main focal point using dry brush techniques and just really getting in there with all of the little details to make your character pop and kind of stand out from the foreground is really what I like to do. There are a lot of techniques where you can have your character blend in softly, but I really like to have my characters bold. It's just very representative of my energy. I love to stand out, and I love to make my characters stand out. And so here we are with our finished details, just going in, adding more glow to that fire, adding some shadows and highlights, and just really helping the image pop. I'm really happy with how it turned out. It's exactly the mood that evoked for me when I was walking through the dark woods, and this is a little bit of how my process goes, just being inspired by nature around me. Be sure to follow me on Instagram for more art at taimarenee.art. And feel free to check out my Etsy shop where I post art prints and other whimsical creations. It's Etsy shop Taima Renee Art.